Okay, so November has pretty much come and gone by the time you watch this video. And I have to say, it's been a pretty big month for Zelda. I mean, we've had rumors of a Zelda TV show that didn't exactly pan out. We've had rumors of a remake of Skyward Sword for the Switch that was straight up shot down. And then we also had the 20th anniversary of Ocarina of Time. And of course, we had two other pieces of news that Nintendo is actually hiring for possibly the next Zelda game. Some people think it's DLC for Breath of the Wild, but it could very well be for the next Zelda title as well. And the other piece of news is that Nintendo has officially announced that they are not going to tell you what spot Breath of the Wild is in the timeline, which honestly with me is kind of fine because I like speculating. I pretty much made a channel off of making theories about where this game is in the timeline. Check out my theory videos. Shameless plug. I don't care. But yeah, it's pretty interesting that they've gone this route with it. And I think I kind of have one or two theories about why they did this. The first one being that there is no place in the timeline for Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild, the reason why it's so hard to put it in the timeline, because there is no place for it. This game was not made to be in the timeline. It was actually just made to be kind of a refresher. Not a reboot, a refresher for Zelda. Basically to bring the Zelda game, the Zelda franchise, into like new ground without changing anything. This is basically saying this is what we are going to do with Zelda. You know, that's why there's so many homages to all the different timelines. That's why there's so many enemies from different timelines, items, buildings, actively talking about the timelines and the story. That's why they do all these things, because this game's not supposed to be in the timeline. It's just supposed to be another Zelda game. And I think that, even though the way they kind of presented it kind of makes it feel like they were a little bit peed about the timeline. They don't want to be restricted to a timeline. They just want to be able to make a Zelda game, which is understandable. I understand that. I mean, if they just don't like it, because I mean, it is kind of restrictive, because if you put it too far in the beginning of the timeline, you have to worry about continuity. If you put it too far back in the timeline, you have to make sure that stuff that happened, and it's addressed or at least referenced in the game. Otherwise, you throw off continuity. If you don't have a timeline, or if it doesn't have a place in the timeline, you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on why they're not going to give us the timeline placement. And on the other piece of news, basically talking about, you know, the fact that the hirings. Oh boy, so this one's kind of interesting. I'm going to have to bust out the phone for this one, because I mean, I actually got the page translated so we can look at, you know, they're hiring for two positions. One of them being a 3D CG designer, like a topography designer, so basically a level designer, and the other one being a So basically, they're hiring for 2 different jobs. So they're hiring for a 3D CG designer, basically somebody who designs topography. So you specifically work on like locations and buildings and textures for buildings and textures for areas in the world. You work on maps and things like that. That's what you work on, essentially. And then, of course, they're hiring a level designer. So there is some clues about what's going on with this in the text. Not so much about the level designer. That's pretty much cut and dry. You know, this game event, dungeon and field planning. So this game could have dungeons, or it could just be more Sheikah things. But a planning of enemy preparation and adjustment of specifications, a series of tasks up to implementation. So it's a little weird because it's translated in Google Translate, but it sounds like you're going to be, the level designer is going to be designing dungeons and placing enemies, essentially. And then the topography designer is going to be designing the topography of the world. And this one is the interesting one because it kind of gives us a little bit of insight on the timetable of the game, or at least I can assume that. So this one, it says, So, in addition to the above skills, you need to be experienced in background production of action games, concept on backgrounds, experience in art production, experience with Substance Painter, which is a game design tool used on the Switch, and leader or equivalent experience. So the topography guy is going to be a leader. He needs leader experience. He needs at least 5 years of experience, which that just screams you're going to be a team leader. So if they're hiring team leaders, more than likely they haven't hired the team yet, because you wouldn't hire the team before you hire the leader. More than likely, the team leader is going to be involved in the hiring process. He's probably going to be doing the interviews for the people that they're going to bring on to this team. So more than likely, if this is for the next Zelda game, then more than likely this game is in very pre-production because they don't even have the level design team set up yet. And the only people working on this is probably just Ayanuma's own personal team, the people around him that are working on this, which is fine. Honestly, I don't necessarily want another Zelda game right now. Unless maybe, because, I want to play Breath of the Wild again, honestly. But I'll take DLC for Breath of the Wild, or maybe a remake of Link's Awakening on 3DS with the A Link Between Worlds style. That'll hold me over. But yeah, this basically states that they're looking for a leader, a team leader, and that could definitely make this game be a ways off if they haven't even built the team that's going to be building the levels yet. Probably this game is going to use assets from Breath of the Wild, even though there's a rumor that they're going to be doing a new Switch. So those assets will have to be updated, which is probably why they're hiring new people in the first place. So that's about it. What do you guys think about this? Talk about it in the comments because I like talking to you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, folks, keep it real.